Welcome to Victim's View, a show produced by the Solicitor General's Office. I'm Carmen Smith, the Solicitor General. One of the misdemeanor crimes that the Solicitor General's Office prosecutes are the mandatory attendance law. Parents are responsible for getting their children to school. Unfortunately, kids are missing too many days, weeks, and months of school in Georgia. Fortunately, the Truancy Intervention Project, also known as TIP, is fighting to decrease absenteeism in our schools. Today we have Karen Cloud, staff attorney for TIP. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Let me ask you this question. Could you give us a little history of what the Truancy Intervention Project is?
So the Truancy Intervention Project is a dropout prevention program, and we were founded in 1991. This is actually our 25th anniversary year. But our origins really started with our co-founders, Terry Walsh, who is an attorney here in Atlanta, and he was the president of the Bar Association back in 1991. And he went to Judge Glenda Hatchett, who at the time was our chief judge of the juvenile court. And he was looking for a project for the Atlanta Bar to do. And he went to Judge Hatchett and said, if we had a number of volunteer attorneys to offer you, where could you use them? And Judge Hatchett, I think he went in thinking she was going to say, I need help with delinquents or children who are committing crimes, but she really wanted the volunteers to focus on kids who were truant, because she felt that if we could intervene at this early stage before kids started getting into trouble, we could really curb their involvement with juvenile court, get them back in school and get them back on track. And so that's how the Truancy Project began. And over the past 25 years, we've served thousands of children with hundreds of volunteers, attorneys and non-attorneys in the Atlanta community, and just really have been fighting the good fight for all these years to get kids back in school, get them re-engaged, and get them to graduate and go on to have productive lives.
And what is your role with the organization? I
am the sole staff attorney. I've been with the Truancy Project since 1999, so for a very long time. And it's been, I'm the only attorney on staff, but it's been a wonderful experience. I represent children who come in for truancy. I have represented children in delinquency matters and in deprivation matters. We also are representing children in school disciplinary hearings, which has really started to play a significant role in kids being absent from school as well, kids getting suspended. So, my job really, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm doing a lot with just TIP and then a lot with the juvenile court as well.
Tell us a little bit more about juvenile court. For many years, I was under the impression that it was a whole different kind of environment, but it is a real court, correct?
That is correct.
And it's separate and apart from superior or state court. And just tell us what might be you mentioned some of them before, some of the typical kind of cases that would go through juvenile court.
Okay. Yes, juvenile court is its own court, kind of we're in a world almost all to ourselves. And in juvenile court, you'll see children anywhere from birth to 17 generally. We have three main types of cases, which are delinquency, which would be the equivalent of a child who's committed a crime. We have dependency cases, which are basically children who are brought to juvenile court because their parents have in some way abused or neglected them. And then we have what we call CHINs. These were former cases that they used to be called status offenses, and simply because of the child's status as a minor, such as truancy, running away, violating curfew, you could be charged with a status offense. We had a rewrite of our juvenile code after about 30 years. Almost 40 years, really, in 2014. And so with the rewriting of the juvenile code, we had a change in how we deal with those children and really address them. They are no longer called status offenders. They're called CHINs, children in need of services. And so what that does is it really reflects the mindset shift that we are having around how we treat juveniles in our system. And we are really trying, I think, as a community, as a juvenile justice community, to focus more on how do we rehabilitate children, which is how, this is the reason the juvenile court was founded back in 1899 was, focusing on how do we rehabilitate these kids, how do we provide services for them and resources to get them back on track, as opposed to focusing so much on, punitive measures. But you can see a lot of things in juvenile court as well. Sometimes you'll see an emancipation of a child. Sometimes you can see legitimations where parents or fathers rather want to come in and establish paternity. So there are a myriad of things that you'll see, but the three main things that you're going to see if you come into juvenile court are going to either be a delinquency case, a dependency case, or a CHINS case.
Now, I think you've really given us an idea of juvenile court, but let's distinguish that from the role of the Truancy Intervention Project. Is it part of the court, or is it a separate nonprofit, or is it a private company? What actually is it when you talk about the basis of it?
Okay, so the Truancy Intervention Project is a private nonprofit. We were established in partnership with the juvenile court and in partnership with the Atlanta Bar Association, but we are our own program. We have donated space in the court. The court has been a wonderful friend to TIP. So when the new juvenile, it's not new now, but when it was built back in 2002, 2003, it was actually built with space in mind for TIP. And so the space that we're in now, 13 years later, is the space that was created for us in the original plans, I guess, as early as 1999. So TIP has been, very fortunate to be considered, I think, so highly by the court. And so we have donated space in the building, but we're not technically Fulton County or Fulton County Juvenile Court employees.
Do you have a website? So if people wanted more information or maybe some volunteer opportunities.
Oh, yes. Our website is www.truancyproject.org. We also have a Facebook page. You can find us on Facebook at Truancy Project Georgia. And we're always looking for more volunteers. We have trainings twice a year, usually in association with the Atlanta Bar Association. And we're always recruiting, so we'd love to have some folks come and visit us on our website. That'd be great.
Well, you mentioned that you had attorney volunteers and then
Yes.
you had non-attorney volunteers.
That's correct.
So explain to me what some of the activities or functions would be for a non-attorney volunteer.
So we have, in addition to our truancy cases in juvenile court, we have what we call our early intervention cases. What we started to find when the program was started initially, the court was charging children as young as 5 or 7 with truancy. And when the court started to look at that and say, kind of said, that doesn't really make sense because a child who's 5 or 7 is not in charge of getting him or herself to school. So we want to start focusing more on kids between 5 and 11 and really look at them in a different category. Get to them at an earlier stage. So we started actually taking our volunteers into the schools. And we work with specific schools within the Atlanta Public School System and the Fulton County School System. And we have started taking our volunteers, and they can be attorneys, but a lot of these volunteers are non-attorneys. And they have started going into the schools, meeting with the child, the family, the teacher, the school social workers, any of the school partners, to really try to get to the root cause of the truancy and intervene at that point. And usually, they're getting to kids at less than 10 days. And so you really see that's really been our more, we have a lot of success with our older kids. But with the younger kids, we're seeing 97, 98% success rate where, kids are coming back to school and their days are decreasing or going away completely where they're missing days.
But when you say older kids, you mean what?
12 to 15.
That's older.
That's older for us because the compulsory attendance law is from 6 to 16. And so for us, the older, right, it's quotes, older kids, right, are the 12 to 15-year-olds. And those are the ones who you're going to see generally charged with truancy in juvenile court.
And do you have any sense of, I've heard rumors that Georgia doesn't rank very well with the dropout rates and that sort of thing.
That's correct. I mean, it's gotten better since I started working with TIP. When I started, we were in the bottom 3. And it has gotten better over the years. But what is starting to happen, we've got to find ways to really re-engage our kids in school. Because if you have kids who have started to miss in those middle school years, 9th grade is really that crucial year. The 9th grade, that 14, 15, that is really where you see the dramatic drop off. If we can't get a child out of 9th grade, it's very, very difficult to keep them going because, kids don't, they don't want to be in the 9th grade when they're 16. They don't want to be the oldest kid in the class. They don't want to be, just kind of ostracized for those kinds of things. So we really have to get them at that stage, because that's where we're seeing a lot of the drop off. And again, it's improved over the years, but it's nowhere near where we need it to be.
Well, we're going to take a quick break and stay tuned, because when we come back, we're going to learn more about the Truancy Intervention Project. Welcome back to Victims View. I'm talking to Karen Cloud, a staff attorney with the Truancy Intervention Project. Now, Karen, you were speaking earlier about the 6 to 16-year-olds, but their attendance and going to school and so forth. And I believe that you mentioned the compulsory attendance law.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
Every state has a compulsory attendance law. Here in Georgia, ours mandates that children attend school between the ages of 6 and 16. There has been a lot of discussion over the years about raising the minimum age to 17, even to 18, because so many of our kids they know about the 16, and they hear that number. That number just kind of floats around. Kids know at 16.
It's like a goal to drop out at 16.
It's the kind of Mom, I'll do what you say until I'm 16, but once I'm 16, I know I can drop out. And so we're losing a lot of kids at 16, and this is around the state, not just here in the metro area. And so over the years, there have been bills proposed that would raise the age to 17, to 18. They have not gone anywhere. We're still an agricultural state, and so we get some pushback on the 16 raising that age, but it's something that we're still pushing towards, because we just are losing too many kids. We're not graduating. We're improving. Our graduation rate is improving, but it is not close to where it needs to be. And so the hope is that if we can get the mandatory age, raised to 17 at least, that would help us to keep a few more kids in school a little longer, get them closer to graduation.
But as we speak today, the dropout rate in Georgia is quite high.
It is high. It's not as high as it used to be. We used to be like in the bottom 3. We were kind of battling, I think, Alabama and Mississippi for a while. We've moved up, but we are still losing too many kids. We're losing kids by, the hundreds. I think at one point, for every, let's say, 100 ninth graders who entered, we were only graduating about 60.
Well, let's talk about the other party to this drama, which would be the parents. Now, if this law is something that most parents are not aware of, I don't know how important it would be to them as an incentive to send their kids to school. But I'm sure with your experience, you've heard many, many excuses for not sending them to school. Share some of those with us, please.
Well, I'll say this about parents' knowledge of the compulsory attendance law. In at least Atlanta Public Schools and Fulton County Schools, in both of their student codes of conduct, they put the compulsory school attendance law in the code of conduct. They also try to have meetings at the beginning of the school year, especially with parents or with kids who have had a history of absenteeism. And so they try to have meetings with these students at the beginning of the school year to go over the compulsory attendance law and make sure that parents understand it. How much attention they pay to it, I don't know. We do have a lot of parents who come to court who say they didn't know about the compulsory attendance law, they didn't understand the implications of it or the consequences of violating it. Parents kind of run the gamut. We have parents who are extremely hardworking. We have parents who work 2 and 3 jobs. And so when their kids aren't going to school, especially the older kids, they're saying, I wake them up when I leave, or I call to make sure that they get up. I expect, he's 15, he's 14, he can get on the school bus. With a lot of our younger kids where, it's the parents' responsibility to get them to school. If they're working late, we have some parents who work until 4 in the morning, and so it's hard for them to get up at 6 and get their kids to school. We have a lot of parents where school is just not a priority for them, especially with the younger grades. I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just kindergarten, it's just second grade. They'll be okay, and they don't understand that those are the building block years.
I think that's one of the most difficult things for me as a prosecutor when we have to prosecute these cases, and some of the reasons they give, such as, well, I am not healthy and I need my child home to help me. And it seems as though the other dynamics of the family may call upon at least the older kids to come, stay home and take care of the siblings and that sort of thing. But also when you talk about that age group that just breaks my heart, from 5 to 7, they can't usually get to school by themselves. Somebody has to at least take them to the bus stop or something.
Right.
So transportation.
Transportation is an issue, and motivation. I was a coworker was talking about a family that she met with yesterday, and the mom, gets the child to school 40 minutes to an hour late every day, and she doesn't understand that, if that child is missing all of math every single day, she's missed it. I mean, yes, she's there for the majority of the day, but those chunks of time, missing seat time, they're going to add up and they're going to count. And so, when I'm talking to parents, a lot of times I don't even focus on the consequences to them. I focus on the consequences to their kids. Because what happens is by the time I see them, when I'm representing them in juvenile court at, 14, 15, and I have 9th graders who are reading on a 2nd grade level, or I have 9th graders who have the math skills of a 3rd grader, I'm trying to talk to parents about this is the consequence. And so how do you get frustrated with a teenager who's sitting in a 9th grade class and has no idea how to function when they say, I'm going to just drop out because I can't function in this environment. And that really is, where our volunteers, for TIP especially, come in, because, we are trying to provide advocates who can come in and assess the situation and say, what do we need to get this child, back on track? Where a lot of times parents aren't either capable, they aren't knowledgeable enough about what their options are. And we have volunteers who can come in and start really advocating. They get into the schools and advocate, they get out into the community and advocate. We have a lot of kids who, on top of educational issues, they're dealing with a lot of trauma. When we have taken a step back and looked at the juvenile justice system, we have found that so many children have mental health issues that either have not been identified or they're not being addressed properly. Children have been, traumatized by just kind of family events, community events, and so
domestic violence.
Domestic violence. I mean, violence in their community, just
gangs,
everything. Some of our kids are literally living in a war zone. When we talk about things that are going on overseas, but we have kids living right here in Atlanta who, they see worse things than you might see in a true war zone. And so when those kids get to school, they're not as focused on what they're doing. And if they're not getting the reinforcement at home of are you doing your homework, are you on level, you don't have a lot of parents who are communicating with teachers, or if they are, it's not, about the schoolwork, it's about, my child got in trouble. And,
and that shouldn't be the only
right.
thing is when they get in trouble.
Right. A lot of parents are clueless about their kids' grades or who their teachers are. And so, we're really trying to get parents to re-engage themselves. Some of our job is getting the kids to re-engage, but so much more of it sometimes is getting the parents to re-engage, because I think a lot of parents, as kids get older, they start to feel like, well, he or she knows, they know what they're supposed to do. They know how to, and we have to say, he's 13. He can't navigate this school environment all by himself. They need support, they need encouragement, they need you to be at the school level advocating for him or her. And a lot of parents, we hear more than anything, I have more kids at home that I have to worry about.
Is there some sort of screening process for your volunteers?
Yes, we have a training that we have. We have 2 live trainings every year, and we also have video trainings that volunteers can do. They do a background check. And so, our volunteers are vetted very well. So when we get them in, court or in the school with the kids, we really are expecting that and that they are going to get in there and really advocate strongly for their clients. And again, that really has been why I think our program has worked so well, because the volunteers, whether they're attorneys, non-attorneys, whatever their walk of life is, they really get involved, they really get engaged. We leave it up to the volunteer to determine how involved. We have some volunteers, they've become family with their kids. You know, they are going to baseball games and we have a couple of kids, it's been 10 or 15 years and they still are in touch with their volunteers and they are still as close as they were, you know, when they first started. And, you know, sometimes our volunteers, that's the first person involved with the child who has cared, who has...
That's unfortunate.
Right, who has really been there for that child. And so what they provide is support and just, you know, care and concern that a lot of our kids just are not getting at home.
That's great. I want to thank you so much. I want to thank Karen Cloud for being here today. I'll be back with some final thoughts about truancy intervention projects right after this. Unfortunately, children who do not go to school suffer academically and eventually drop out. Parents who fail to send their children to school contribute to the problem. The Truancy Intervention Project is designed to intervene in the lives of these children by providing support, resources, and services. We appreciate the staff and volunteers who work with the Truancy Intervention Project to increase school attendance so that these kids can get an education and improve their lives. I want to thank Karen Cloud for the work that she does and for joining us today. Thank you for watching Victim's View. We'll see you next time.